Welcome to Live.Laugh.Launch, the podcast where we take your go-to-market strategy seriously.
But not too seriously. We're your co-hosts. I'm Katie.
And I'm Veronica.
And we're marketing pros who've survived enough launches to know that perfection is a myth and coffee, and sometimes cocktails, are a must.
In this podcast, we talk strategy, share hard-earned lessons, and say the quiet part out loud, whether you asked for it or not.
We'll tackle the good, the bad, and the hilarious of marketing, so you can giggle, not gaggle, your way through your next launch.
Because if you're not living, laughing, and launching, are you even marketing?
Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Live.Laugh.Launch. Today we have Jonathan Pipek with us. We're so excited to have him here. So Jonathan is the founder of Blue Manta Consulting. He's a product marketing consultant for B2B SaaS startups. His experience spans roles at companies like Career Builder, Assurant, and LineGuard, and he's been recognized as a top 100 product marketing influencer. Jonathan is also a GTM mentor at 1871, a Chicago-based startup accelerator, a Kellogg MBA graduate, good job, Jonathan, and actively mentors aspiring product marketers. He's spoken at events like the Chicago Product Marketing Alliance Summit, and he shared insights on go-to-market strategies and community-led growth. So welcome, Jonathan. Happy to have you.
What's up, Jonathan? So cool.
Yeah, thank you both for having me. It's so excited to be here. And great podcast name, by the way. Very clever.
Thank you. It took us quite a while to find one that wasn't taken, and I was shocked that this one was.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Thank you. So let's get to know each other, Jonathan. Let's talk about, what's your hobby? What interests you besides go-to-market? Let's start there.
Ooh, good question. Eating, for sure, is my number one hobby. No, I'm kidding. No, I do love to eat. Cooking, like the classic millennial things, right? Cooking, travel, etc. Maybe a little less classic. Anything that involves a little bit of danger. Scuba diving with sharks, skydiving, kayaking can be dangerous if you kayak with gators, which I did in Florida a lot. Jumping off waterfalls. Yeah, that kind of thing is fun for me. I tend to do less and less as I get older. And now that I, have a kiddo, my wife is not so inclined to let me do those things. But, we do what we can.
Talk about the sharks. Did you actually, swim with sharks or dive with sharks?
Yeah, so I've scuba dived and snorkeled with sharks. So I've done, bonnet heads, white tips, black tips, nurse sharks, of course.
So many sharks.
And then the biggest were 2 tiger sharks that were like 14 footers, and the visibility was pretty bad. And it's hard to gauge distances underwater when you're scuba diving, but I'd say roughly 30, 40 feet away. And they would just kind of go in and out of vision. And you're like, oh, this is so cool. And then when you get back on the boat, you're like, oh crap, I could have died. But in the moment, super cool. Oh, and I've also gone diving with blue manta rays, which is what my consultancy is about. So yeah, they're really cool.
It's funny because Katie and I were in South Africa, 2 years ago now, and I wanted to dive with the sharks, but luckily, thinking about it now, the water was too cold. She was like,
I don't think they were going to let us because it was too cold. It was only a summer activity.
I to do it, yeah. And now thinking back, I don't know if that was so smart, but yeah.
Oh, I totally want to do it. So I went to South Africa when I was 15, and my parents were not down to pay. It was very expensive for whatever reason. But I'm totally down to go. Quick fun fact, shark cages are an illusion. So sharks are actually strong enough to destroy the cages and get in. They just hit something hard with their snout, and they're like, oh, this is hard. I'm not going to mess with it. But if you get a shark going, I think they go 20, 30 miles an hour underwater, they will break straight into it. But sorry, I'm getting into my nerdy shark phase.
No. That just destroyed my almost dream of doing this.
Oh, you should definitely go. Do it.
I will not be doing that. I will support you on the sideline with a cocktail.
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
All right, let's get into it, Jonathan. I would love to talk to you about startups specifically. And the most common go-to-market mistakes you see at early stage startups and how startups can avoid them as well.
Oh, that's a good one. The most obvious one that like immediately comes to mind is ICP. Like, just there's especially for founder-led startups, like really early stage, they just want to sell everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And convincing them like, hey, you need to pick your lane and stick to it. And like, well, no, our product's so amazing. We could sell it to this person and this person and this person. And I'm like, great. How are you going to do that with your team of 2? So yeah, poorly defined ICP for sure. The obvious way to counter that is to hone in on one specific group and go after them. And then the other one I hear a lot, and this is probably common for, I'd say all level of startup, but most common like seed to like Series B, is they invest in ads from like day one versus honing fundamentals. So they'll spend, and this is like a routine thing. It's not like a one-off. You'll have these startups that spend, I don't know, 10, 20 grand a month for a year. And then they go to the ad agency and they're like, hey, what the hell? You gave me nothing. And the ad agency turns around and looks at them and say, listen, dude, like, you didn't tell me who to target. You didn't tell me any kind of messaging other than this crappy ad that was like 2 lines. Your landing page, by the way, not that you asked me to audit it, but I'll audit it. Like, your landing page had no copy about what problem you were solving, who you were for. Your pricing didn't exist. It was nowhere publicly available. And you had no like real tangible offer. So of course these weren't going to convert. But that's not our job. Our job is you gave us the ads and you told us, hey, place them where you want them. That's what we did. So that happens all the time because like these startups don't get the fundamentals right. They don't figure out who they're targeting. They don't understand what they want to tell them, right? What is the message? They don't think about the best ways to reach them. So a lot of startups like assume, oh, we're going to do LinkedIn ads, or if it's B2C, we're going to do Facebook or Meta ads. Maybe that's not the right channel. They also don't have like an offer for them. Like telling someone, hey, here's your problem and I can solve it. Great. What are you going to do about it? Like, what's your offer? What's your pricing and packaging? And then lastly, like, how are you differentiating? If you're, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I get like, I don't want to exaggerate, but maybe like 5 to 10 emails a week offering me leads. And it's like,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, they're all the same. It's like, hey, Katie, would you say no to additional business for your, like, Veronica, would you disagree that more business would be a good thing? Like, no, of course not. You're going to give me leads? Why would I believe you versus the 15 other emails? So yeah, that's something constantly that I see is like just full throttle on ads and nothing on go-to-market fundamentals.
Yeah.
I can think of a company. I can't think of the name, but they started out strong. This was a few years ago. It was a furniture company, and I constantly found them on Meta. And like you said, they came in strong, but then they went bankrupt like a year or 2 in because they spent so much money on Meta without a target or ICP.
Shit.
And they had such a good product. I never purchased off of them, but I kept seeing their items. And I'm like, oh, that'd be cool if I, ever needed that, but I don't. And I read an article that they did file bankruptcy before they even got off the ground. So I can see that.
Yeah. It's tough. It's like you spend 120 grand or more on ads and you don't know who you're targeting. It's like, I don't know. It's very much the whole VC fueled kind of era versus now I think startups are getting away from that and thinking like, how is each dollar going to matter?
Yeah, for sure. That's important. When building a product marketing function from scratch, what are the first 3 steps that you would recommend?
Building a product marketing function from scratch so nothing exists. Okay. That's a great question. So I think first I'm going to probably identify like company goals and departmental level goals. So try to understand like what is the company trying to do, because that can look really, really different. So if you're trying to maximize profitability, you probably want to raise prices as an example. You're probably going to focus on like high margin products. If you're trying to, penetrate the market, definitely doing a land and expand kind of motion, right? You're going in with a lower entry price, so on and so forth. You're maximizing revenue. Maybe you're doing like a bundle or a platform play, etc. So one is just like understanding what are the company goals. Are we trying to raise, a new fund in the next, a new series in the next, 6 months, year? Are we trying to get acquired, so on and so forth? To do that, I'd probably speak with C-suite, see if there's anything documented like company goals or objectives, and then also do the same with department leaders, just to get a sense of like, okay, these are like company level goals. How does that translate for sales? How does it translate for customer success, marketing, etc.? So I think that'd be step one. Step two, which I advocate for all the time on social, so apologies if this is redundant, but is creating a product marketing team charter. Like this is like essentially your map of what is product marketing at your organization, right? You're assessing kind of your current goals, your objectives, the outcomes you're going to focus on. You're figuring out, okay, what are we going to support today? But then as we build out, what does the future look like, right? Maybe today you can focus on A, B, and C, but then, hey, in 6 months, we'll hire an additional product marketer and it'll include, we'll expand that scope to E, F, G, et cetera. And then as part of that process, you kind of get alignment and buy-in from all the key teams you work with, right? So like customer success, sales, marketing, product, et cetera, and also from C-suite. So I think having those two would be really foundational. And then the third thing, which I don't know if this counts, but I'm going to count it, is like just asking for necessary resources. So I think a lot of the times product marketers assume like they gave you everything they got and that's it. Like you just have to deal with that. And sometimes just asking really goes a long way, especially if you're at a later stage startup where you're like, hey, here's what you told me the company goals are. Wow, the background is killing my hand game, but I'll do here, I guess. Like here's company goals. Great, fantastic. Here are the departmental level goals. We've defined how product marketing ladders up to those and how we support those through product marketing team charter. Now, given our current resources, we'll be able to do this. Now, if you give us more resources, we can do that, which I think would have XYZ impact on the company, right? That's huge. And that you want to think about that in terms of like people, right? Additional like headcount, of course, but also tech. And then the other part, which I don't think a lot of folks think about or talk about enough, is resources in terms of time from other departments. So what I mean by that is like, hey, we're going to launch a new process. So our new process is going to be the new launch process, right? Like when we launch new products, here's what the process is going to be. We can talk about that all day long, but unless the other teams actually buy in, it doesn't mean anything, right? Or, hey, our new one pages are going to go through this new process. Great. Have the designers and the marketing team agreed to spend whatever, 5% of their time, 10% of their time on these? If not, guess what? They're not going to be designed. So I think it's that combination of like, one, getting really clear on what are the company and departmental level goals, two, defining product marketing within your company, and then three, figuring out how do we actually make that happen in other words, how do we get the resources to do that?
Those are really good top 3 points and I think anyone who's interviewing should also ask those questions, even if you're not interviewing for a lead role. Knowing what I know now, I think I will use those pointers and ask those top questions because, when you're interviewing, you're thinking of how I'm going to get a job and you're excited and you're selling yourself, but you don't tend to stop and ask, how is this going to work once I'm hired?
I think also, like, I've been in orgs at all different stages now, but there have been some that have hundreds of people that don't have true company goals. And that is sadly fairly common. So I definitely think knowing how the company has structured those is really important because you can have different executives or different departments like fighting against each other for their own objectives. And that is a very tricky place to be as a product marketing person.
For sure.
So what strategies could you suggest to ensure alignment between like the different departments, for example, like sales and product marketing?
Yeah. So real quick, I want to tie that back to something you said earlier, Veronica, about in the interview process. So one of the like gotcha questions I always ask as a candidate, and again, I'm not an in-house product marketer anymore, but what I did ask is I would say, oh, how aligned, would you say the go-to-market teams are? And almost all the time they'd say, oh, they're super aligned. I was like, okay, great. Do you guys have shared goals? Like what's a shared metric y'all go to? And every single time the answer was, we don't have one. And I was like, okay, so to recap, y'all are really aligned, but you don't have shared goals. So how aligned are you really? So that's a big one. But in terms of like how to work with sales, that's a really good question. I think it depends, is the short answer. But one is like really understanding kind of the leader or the leader's goals and like motivations, right? And I mean that in two ways. Like one is at the departmental level. So are they interested in like, obviously something like hitting quota, but maybe they're interested in like beating competitors, right? Maybe that's a departmental goal, or hitting a certain conversion rate. On the personal level, and this is actually, I think, more as important, at least I would say, is what are their personal motivations, right? Are they a director that's trying to get promoted or get a raise to VP? Do they care about influence or power, right? A lot of sales leaders I've worked with really cared about headcount or scope of responsibilities, right? So do they care about impact to the company? Like figure out what is important to them. So I think as a step one is like understanding the departmental and personal goals. Then two is like figuring out conversely, like what do they not like? So for me, the common, at least the common kind of thread in my career, whether I've worked at, whether it was a Fortune 500, midsize, or startup, was that sales leaders really don't like their team being off the sales floor. Like it really grinds their gears, right? To use a Family Guy expression. So maybe that, or one sales leader told me that he really hated when we presented at his team. So we would just like go up, share a PowerPoint on the webinar or in person and just present. Like hated that. We got zero time to do that. He's like, if you want to engage my team, great. Online versus in person, same thing. And then some feedback I got from sales reps was that they hated contests and they did like spiffs, because contests, it felt like there's one person out of 30 that's going to get this, or one out of 400, depending how big your sales team is. A spiff, I know for a fact that if I do X, I get Y. So I think those are the big two, is like understanding the motivations and goals, and then two, figuring out what they don't like. And then beyond that, like the classic things you've heard, right? Like weekly syncs, really focusing on like learning to read them. So you know how like you all have friends or significant others that you call them or they call you, or you even see them without them saying a word, you already know what's wrong, or something's wrong, right? I want you to get to that level with your sales leader. Like when you're at that point where you jump on Zoom and you're like, dude, what's wrong? Are you okay? And they haven't said a word. They're just looking at you. That's when you know you're in sync. And then some more classic cliche ones like just integrating them early into the process, right? Involving them early, co-creating versus creating and then giving them something to give you feedback. The other one that's really important is champions. So I feel like product marketers for the most part already do this, but for maybe folks who are more junior in their career, there's going to be someone on the sales team that just naturally gravitates towards product marketing. It always happens. There's going to be someone. If they're influential, meaning other people actually listen when they speak, you got to recruit them. You got to get them not to be a product marketer, but to basically be like your advocate, your champion on the sales team. Because then what you're essentially doing is like a pincer movement. And I'm not a military strategist or anything, but like, you've got your sales leader up here, like ideally banging the drum saying, hey, product marketing. But then you have these kind of like agents within, or they're spies or whatever you want to call them, within sales that are saying like, hey, no, these guys actually are legit. Like they know what they're talking about. That's really big. And then the last one, sorry, I'm going on this like soliloquy over here. The last one I'll say is sales advisory councils. So I don't hear anyone talk about those, honestly. So I don't know how widespread this is, but sales advisory councils are like a fresh breath of air, because you get basically all this feedback, right? You create, and for folks who don't know, it's essentially like a customer advisory board, right? Which folks are familiar with, but for sales. So you basically go in, you share with sales like either strategies, product launches, sales collateral, positioning, messaging, whatever. They give you feedback, and then you do with it what you will. That is huge. Like cannot undersell how important that is. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
We didn't have that, Katie. And I think the last organization I was at would have benefited from that.
Yeah, I've typically worked with sales more one-on-one, but definitely always found champions across different geographies very important, and across like different levels of sales. So I try to mix it up as much as I can. The other thing I'll say is one time I worked with a team of 2 salespeople who were working together on like our big enterprise deals, and having both of them to bounce ideas off of was super helpful, and just like getting feedback, because no one is going to give you the same feedback in exactly the same way about a customer call. They can be on the same call, but doesn't mean they're going to, relay the same info to you. So I think that was helpful too. And just fitting into existing like teams and processes where you can, and finding like, okay, who's going to be my friend? Who's going to partner with me? And who can I help? Because I always see sales as my like internal audience. And I think that builds trust and allows them to give me information that I need as well, and think of me when they do have something to share. I'm super big on sales partnerships and product partnerships.
For sure.
Can you discuss a time when customer feedback led to a significant pivot in messaging or positioning for any product launches that you've been involved in?
Yeah, for sure. So let me think of a recent example. So I worked on developing new positioning for a Blue Manta client pretty recently. Just for context, they're a European company. They're trying to enter the US market. And they had already done like kind of deep analysis of like the US market around kind of their industry. And based on the data, they said like roughly 70% of the market wasn't even like problem aware, which is pretty big hurdle, right? Like that's not a good situation to be in. So kind of the assumption going into this positioning exercise and messaging exercise was the client's going to have to do a whole lot of education on the problem that their product solves before they even get to like, what is their product, right? So obviously as part of kind of positioning process, like my team and I interviewed customers and prospects. And what we found was actually really surprising. So there was a high degree of problem awareness in the people we were talking to. But what we realized was that it was really specific. So there was like a segment of folks we were talking to, which ended up being like experienced marketers, like people that had, I want to say it was like at least 6 or 7 years of experience and had worked at more than one company before. But when you had the combination of experience plus multiple companies, they were really problem aware. And it was almost like, it was kind of funny actually. They're almost insulted that we were asking them like, are you aware of this? They're like, yeah, of course. And they would say like any veteran marketer would know this. I'm like, okay, very interesting. So basically like after we did this research, we were like, okay, experienced marketers are for sure our target, which completely contradicts all analysis. And it also even contradicted the results the sales team was getting because they were doing cold outreach to a completely different segment and getting great results with that segment, terrible results with marketing. But again, it was niching down to like that hyper specialized segment. That's where the gold was. So completely changed the trajectory of kind of how the company's positioning, targeting the sales, so on and so forth.
What did you do to shift that for the sales team? Did you create new messaging? What type of sales enablement did you do for the sales team?
Yeah. So first we started with ICP, right? Just defining the ICP and target personas and making marketing kind of the number one persona. 2, we overhauled their entire positioning. 3, we overhauled their entire messaging. And then this is a consulting engagement. So that was the end of our part. But what we recommended to the marketing team, and keep in mind, sales was involved throughout the entire process. So it's product, customer success, marketing, so on and so forth. But at that point, what we recommended to them was like, look, you really need to share and disseminate this information with sales in a way that's really digestible, because let's be real, like nobody really looks at messaging frameworks. Like even product marketers, like we'll look at it once and then we're like, like you just don't, right? So helping translating that into like a one pager or a cheat sheet or something that's really tangible and easy to kind of use on a day-to-day basis is what's helpful. And then 3 is like, from a sales perspective, like if you're telling them, okay, go after marketers, great. Make sure that the data in the CRM that they're actually using, it reflects the new ICP. So yeah.
I like having sales do a quick pitch, like 5 minutes, depending on which like LMS you're using. You could have them recorded or different ways to do that. But I've always found that helpful for not only them, but for the marketing team as well, because we can see like, what did you actually understand from our messaging framework? What did you understand from our training? And then also just tweak based on, they're the experts in what they're hearing in the field. And so they're always going to have that lens and make it their own individually as a salesperson. So I think that's helpful to hear as well.
Yeah. I love that, especially when you have the sales leaders grade or evaluate the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
That's really nice, because then it's like it's not us product marketers that don't have sales experience, even though some of us do, giving them feedback. It's like, hey, that's your direct manager. Like you have issues, like talk to them. Like, that's
and make it required and get the sales leader to agree. That's the way to do it.
Buy-in. That's so true.
Amen.
We're talking about product marketing. So how do you differentiate between product marketing and go to market in a startup setting?
So I love that question. I love it so much. I did an entire webinar on that with Ahmed and Bianca on PMM Fix. So this could easily be like a 4-hour conversation. but I will do my best to make it like,
Okay.
I don't know, 3 minutes or less.
Great.
So for me, go-to-market is a company's strategic plan for essentially selling its services and products to its target market. That's go-to-market. Product marketing, on the other hand, I'm like a huge fanboy of Chris Handy's definition of product marketing. I think it's the best one I've ever heard, which is product marketing is a department that drives three things. It helps product build what sells. It helps sales sell what we build, and it helps customers get the outcomes we promise. Those three are by far the best. So like when you think of go to market, I think of it like to make it tangible, right? Because definitions are cute and all, but like give me the rubber meets the road situation, right? So for me, go to market is like I'm launching a product or a new feature in an existing market, right? Like a classic product launch, or I'm entering a new market with an existing product or a new product, right? I'm targeting a new industry or customer segment. I'm changing go-to-market motions. Maybe I was originally PLG, but now we're going enterprise. So now we're investing in sales-led growth. Maybe we've developed a really strong community. So now we're going to promote user advocacy, sort of like Notion does, right? Or we're focusing on a partner ecosystem for retention, like Pipedrive, which is a really common CRM for folks who aren't aware, so on and so forth. Versus like product marketing, I think of like, okay, let's identify the ICP. Let's craft differentiated messaging. Let's develop simple pricing packaging. Let's enable our sales team, increase product adoption, etc. So like product marketing is part of go-to-market, but go-to-market is like much, much bigger. And it's a cross-functional endeavor where product marketing, you would hope that most of it is, but it's not always, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. It's true. I love that. We had conversation, our last podcast, where we were trying to describe what product marketing is, and then it went off to Mad Men conversation and who we are. So it's just, I love the way you narrowed that down for us. As a mentor, what common challenges do you see among like aspiring product marketers, and how do you advise them?
That's a good question. I think 70% of the questions narrow down to like two main points, or two main kind of subjects, I should say. The number one is, not surprisingly, how do I get a job in this job market? I think everyone knows, right? It's taking product marketers, even ones that have like every Mang on their resume, like 6 to 12 months easy to find a job. Mm-hmm. And the higher up you are, the harder it is, right? Because there's less jobs. So I think that's the number one thing I get. The advice there is niche down. So you are specifically a cybersecurity product marketer, you are specifically a fintech product marketer, et cetera. And reflecting that on your resume and LinkedIn, right? That's kind of step one. And then only applying to fintech roles. Then two, this is one that I really, really love. And I think about this all the time because at this point, I've hired directly like 3 product marketers. And then I've been part of hiring committees for, I don't know, 50 plus interviews at this point, 60 plus, who knows? And then through my own company, I've interviewed, I don't know, dozens of product marketers. But the point is like, what would happen to me all the time is what I call the spouse test. So you do a long day of interviewing folks. Like you interview like 6 people back to back. You have like 1 break for lunch. That's it. You go home, you lay down in bed, you're exhausted. Hopefully you showered, but you lay down in bed. Your spouse is like, hey, how was your day, honey? Like, what'd you do? And you're like, oh, I interviewed a bunch of people. And every single time my wife would ask me, oh, did anyone stand out? Mm-hmm. And you want to tell such a compelling story that you have a blank person. So what I mean by that is like, oh, you're the Blue Manta guy. You're the scuba dive guy. You're the jump off a cliff guy. You're the, I don't know, immigrant that speaks 3 languages guy. Like you want to have a thing that your story is so compelling and stands out that after even that wave or that week of interviews, that when your spouse asks the interviewer, hey, did anyone stand out? They immediately think of you.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's huge. And then the classic ones, right? Like networking in person and online, promoting yourself, right? Doing everything you can to stand out. So like posting on LinkedIn, writing articles, webinars, podcasts, etc. But yeah, job market is definitely number one. Number two, I think, is the one I keep hearing. And it's interesting because I hear, kind of to Katie's point about being close to not just sales, but also product, is getting cross-functional buy-in from either sales or product. like I get people who are like, oh, I love product. They're my best friends. We're besties. Like we go on double dates, like literally get like, they love it. And then they're like, sales, pain in my butt. And then vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. But I think it's, it's similar to what we talked about before, right? Establish your PMM team charter, right? Because as part of that, you ask for cross-functional buy-in, developing your emotional intelligence, right? Understanding what motivates your peers, whether again, they're product leaders, sales leaders, etc., their needs, any roadblocks they have that maybe you can help with. Again, aligning with company goals and like co-creating initiatives. It's really hard for you to go to a sales leader and say, hey, we have this company goal. Here's how I think we can partner to solve that. And for them to say, no, I'm not interested, right? It's really tough. And then the other thing I think is like positioning. Like it's kind of ironic to me that like product marketers are really good at positioning products, terrible at positioning ourselves. Like we're almost infamous for it at this point. And on the product side, it's like, look, my goal, like I'm here, literally here. Like I was hired, someone paying me money to help get the word out about your products, right? Like that's my literal job, and to help get users or help users get the most out of the product. Like I'm literally here to help you. Isn't that wild? And then for the sales team, similar, like my job is literally to make your job easier. Like I'm literally here to help you make more money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, shouldn't you want to work with me?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we're a little shy about being that direct, but
Mm-hmm.
like fucking be that direct.
Yeah.
Like just tell people like I'm literally here for that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because at first, like, and I don't know if you know Hattie, but
Mhm.
and Hope Shalon, they're both in London, great PMMs, and they were like, go at it, don't be ashamed, like just be you and be direct. And sometimes I find myself, or at the beginning, I'm getting better at it, but at the beginning of my product marketing days, I would sit back and kind of was timid. And I think that had to do with I was already a part of the company, and I was a little bit shyer because I'm like, okay, now I'm transitioning from this role to this role, which it wasn't a big difference of the role, but I just felt like they're not looking at me the same. I don't know. I was a little more insecure, but like you just said, like just be there, just tell them I'm here to help you make money. Like I need to be at your side. Like you need me as much as I
Right.
need you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that for sure.
And let's be real, like it is tough when you're transitioning roles. But then also the other part that I think we again don't talk about enough is a lot of startup, especially in the startup space, you hire really junior people. Like I'm talking like, you have 1 to 3 years max experience as a product marketer. You say, hey bud, you're going to be the solo PMM.
Right.
And by the way, as a solo PMM, if you're doing your job right, you need to go to the CEO, who by the way has more work experience than you've been alive, or go to the attorney who's been like legislating since you were in diapers, and you're going to go ahead and tell them, like both, hey guys, so I totally understand that this is what y'all want to do, but here's why you're wrong, and here's what we should do instead. Like as a 23-year-old, 24-year-old, like that's really tough sell. Like there's certain personalities that can do that, or certain people have like certain, confidence, gravitas, charisma, whatever you want to call it. But for most people, like that's really, really tough, especially when you don't have a mentor or a guide or someone in your corner. So again, like totally 100% understand why PMMs have a tough time being confident, to your point, Veronica. But I think that's where something like Jason Oakley's PMM Jetpack, or mentors or coaches like Elin Pei, et cetera, come in, or Tamara Graminsky's PMM camp. Like that's when you need to lean on your community or Sharebird, PMA, like Product Marketing Alliance, et cetera, to really like be confident, because at the end of the day, like you're there to help. And if they're not willing to listen, then why are you there?
I'm glad you mentioned that, like the community, because there are resources. I mean, I only knew of Product Marketing Alliance when I first got into product marketing. And then I started branching out. And that's when I started following you, to be honest, and following others. And my previous supervisor told me to read a book, and I cannot remember the name of it right now, but it wasn't the right book for me, starting out as a product marketing manager at that time, because it made absolutely no sense. And so what is one book every product marketer should read, in your opinion?
I'm going to give such a cliche answer. I'm sure everyone gives the same answer, but obviously Awesome by April Dunford. I mean, just such a solid one. Yeah. She also has another one called Sales Pitch, which is really, really
I
good.
do have that one. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like it just gives you a common language, especially if you've never done positioning, like company-wide level, like product positioning. It just gives you a common language. It's really straightforward. Like, I don't know if y'all have watched like April Dunford's podcast or just heard her speak, but she's just a very straightforward, like no BS kind of person, which totally jazzes me. Like, love it. And that's how her books read. It's like, hey, here's what you need to know. Here's how to do it. Here's an example. Go forth and conquer. And
Exactly what was needed when I started back in the day.
totally.
And actually, like I had a manager who led me a little bit down the wrong way, but it was a good learning experience. And I learned a lot from this person. I also learned a lot from Katie. So she's another mentor, but I was able to just kind of like, you're kind of going down a rabbit hole. And half the time you feel like, am I doing this right? And I think a lot of product marketing managers feel that because we're constantly launching brand new items that we've never brought to market. So we're always scratching our head like, is this right? We got the basics down, but like, did we do this right? You know, as long as it worked and it went to market, and then we can go back and look at those metrics. That's kind of how you know, but deep down, like you're waking up at night, like, what did I miss or what am I forgetting? You know, so it's pretty common.
Outside of like traditional product marketing books, I also like to read things that are complementary. So I like to read like sales books. How do you talk about this thing? I think it's very complimentary. Strategic narrative type things, brand, any type of storytelling. I think all those things are so important for product marketing. They may not have the product marketing name or banner, but they're all super helpful.
That's true. Anything that aligns with go to market, I think is helpful.
For sure. Especially like Story Brand is a good one. Challenger Sale, like those are classics.
Yeah.
But the other one that like is maybe a little cliche, but I always mess up the title, so please fix it for me. But like, how to influence people and make friends or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I know I bungled the title, but yeah, I think that's like 90% of the PMM job.
I have that one at home.
Yeah, I do too. I was just looking for it.
Yeah, no, those are some, you know, good starting books to get going, definitely. And ask a lot of questions. I think a lot of people feel like embarrassed to ask a lot of questions, but as a product marketer, ask. The more you ask, the more you know. That's what your job is. Ask a million questions and don't be afraid to ask those questions. Sometimes you get different personalities that are like, you should know this or hurry up or, you know, but if you're like me, I'm a visual learner. So it's like, I'm going to ask you those million questions and then I'm going to expect you to show me. And then I'm going to go test it out myself, you know?
Yeah. And people love talking about themselves.
I was about to say, if you can just appeal to their ego in the right way, anyone will answer anything.
Yeah. Especially sales. Like they love it. The product too. Like it's, yeah. Oh, what's your vision? Boom. 15 minutes later. Like,
yep.
Yeah, they love it. Absolutely love it.
So do you do any type of mentorship?
Yeah, so I do a few different types. So for startups, I'm a mentor at 1871. So I do go-to-market mentoring there. 1871 is like a local incubator here, local accelerator here in Chicago. And then for individuals, I do mentoring through ADP List, which is free, by the way. Anyone can sign up. I think it's global. So I think I've mentored folks from like 15, 16 countries.
Wow.
That's awesome. I think I'm going to join. Since I'm also in the market for looking for that perfect fit for myself. I'm going to work on branding. That's a goal, branding myself and just also being out there more. I feel like in my tech community, there are not a lot of product marketers. I'm based out of Orlando, Florida. So I would love to start like maybe some type of tech, PMM tech community out there.
This brings up a good point though. I think we've talked a lot on this podcast about how new product marketers can position themselves and get in the door and things like that. But what about the folks who have been doing it for a while, especially the folks who have been in a lot of different industries? They don't have a niche. They do all the things. Do you have any advice for more established product marketers in positioning themselves?
For jobs or?
Yeah.
So a long time ago, before I started my consultancy, I was looking at a job at Open Table. It was probably like a what is it called? A stretch job? I don't know if that's a term or if I just made it up. But anyway, it was a stretch for me to get the job, is the point. So I reached out to the guy on LinkedIn who had just held the job like a few months ago. And like this guy's resume was just like badass. Like if I had a third of his resume, I'd be thrilled. I'd be done. I'd be like, I can retire. So I reach out to him, set up a one-on-one. We meet up and I'm like virtually and I'm like, no offense, but like your resume makes no sense to me. Like you're at like 13 different industries. You're hired in like these super profile roles. And in my experience, these are the type of roles where we're like, Katie, you don't have 15 years in this specific industry. Like you're out. You're not even considered, even though you're a badass PMM. And he's like, oh, no. I've worked at the same type of company. And I was like, look, I'm not a genius, but I'm looking here and you have B2C, you have B2B, you have industry A, industry, like these, there's nothing similar here. And he's like, no. I was marketing the same audience. And I was like, you gotta spit this out for me. So what he explained, which again, freaking brilliant, was that he was, while all the companies, industries, et cetera, were different, they had two things in common. One, they were dual-sided marketplaces, all of them. And two, he was always marketing to SMBs based in the US. So he developed a really, really strong, like, subject matter expertise in how to market to SMBs and also in dual-sided marketplaces. So he could do B2B and B2C. So one I would say is find the commonality, like what is the common string between all the different roles? Two, I think organizations, or sorry, I should say groups like PMM Camp that Tamara runs, fantastic. Heard nothing but good things, highly recommend. And then three, I think at that level, right, so I'm just assuming like director and above, right, director, senior director, VP, like I think it has to come from a referral. Like I don't think anyone hires like a director, senior director, VP from like a job application. Like it just doesn't happen. So I think I would figure out, okay, who am I targeting? So get super niche. Even if your background is a niche, get super niche on who you're targeting. So as an example, I'm targeting cybersecurity startups. Cool. And specifically like, let's say series B and C as an example. Okay, fantastic. What I'm going to do then is look at VCs that I have an in with that specifically invest at the B and C level in cybersecurity companies, or someone that does have an in with them as an example, or maybe an incubator, or maybe an accelerator, or maybe a cybersecurity, like their cybersecurity marketing association is a Slack group, right? It's a community. So basically I'm going to find an in and try to get them to help me get a job. That's basically what I would recommend is like niche down, not just on your background, but on what type of role you're targeting. Post about it constantly on LinkedIn, create content for it, like get the word out. So when people think, oh, Katie is this, like they have something to reference. Because even though you might have a background in like 15, 20, like I've worked at like 36 plus industries at this point, if you include consulting, right? But if I went for my next job, I would think, okay, I specifically want to do cybersecurity or fintech. Like make everything you talk about moving forward that specific niche. And then quickly people be like, oh, Katie's the blank PMM. If you're not narrowed down to like one or two industries, it's going to be really tough. And one other thing I'll say, all the time, like probably 5 times a week, I get a ping from someone saying, hey, I'm looking for this job. Can you keep an eye out? And these messages they feel like cold emails. They're super, super basic. They're like, hey, I'm looking for a senior PMM role, remote, let me know. I'm like, first of all, I get like 5 to 10 of these a day or a week. Who are you? But second, like, well, sure, who are you? That's a good point. But second, you've told me nothing. Like all you've told me is you want a PMM role. I'm like, what is the title? What is the comp? What is the region? What industry are you interested? What company stage? Do you want to manage a team? Do you want to be an IC, etc.? So get super hyper specific where it's like you've gone from like 15,000 jobs to like 3. And then do everything you can to get in at that company. So at one company, I'll give you an example. So it was a senior leadership role in product marketing. I reached out to 7 people. I talked to all 7, by the way, on the sales team, on the product side, on the customer success side, and the product marketing side, including someone on the hiring committee. By chance, I didn't know she was on the hiring committee. So I reached out to all of them, had individual one-on-one conversations. 2, I got the hiring manager's email address. 3, I created a custom video. So I did a Zoom recording, changed my Zoom background to a logo of the company, like logos of the company, and then also their products, the specific ones I would be in charge of as a PMM. So I had the products and then I had the logo. And then I looked up the hiring manager on Sharebird. And they had actually done an AMA specifically about what type of product marketing leaders they hire. So like gold pop moment for sure. Like I'm not pretending that's normal, but so I was like, okay, great. So then I recorded myself answering the 4 things he looks for and saying what my specific like qualities, characteristics, experience, etc. are that match that. I emailed that to him, and then I also sent him a portfolio. It was for a cybersecurity company. Sent him a portfolio about my security experience with specific examples that were relevant, and told him and a cover letter that was like 3 bullets, essentially like why I'm a good fit. I think that's everything I did, but I must have done. I remember doing like a ridiculous amount of things, but I guarantee you nobody else did all that.
Yeah.
So I think just finding ways like using your expertise to target them. I've heard one guy did LinkedIn ads, and then we all heard, what was her name? Was it Maria? It went viral last year, or the year before, for doing a video on why she's a good product marketer.
I did see that. Yes.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah. No, those are really good points, especially right now. People are just submitting their resumes online, LinkedIn, wherever else. I think those are really, really good. You're selling yourself, right? And you're being creative. And if you go on to a sales call, that's what the salesperson does. So this is how you're going to brand yourself. You mentioned ShareBird. What are other productivity tools or apps that you recommend? In general, it doesn't have to be just to apply for jobs.
Okay, got it. I mean, the one I use, actually I use multiple times every day is Perplexity. Huge Perplexity fan. I basically usually ask it to check Reddit for me so I don't have to. Like food recommendations, travel recommendations, etc. Recommendations for like appliances, for stuff I buy around the house, for service companies, like what's the best company to, change my AC, so on and so forth. And then I also use it for product marketing, like shortening things. I just love that, and I don't know if folks are familiar with Perplexity or not because everyone's, ChatGPT fan, but you can basically choose which LLM you want. So it has like Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Grok, Gemini, a few others in there. So you can choose which one you want. So that is really helpful if like you want Claude for writing, but you want Perplexity for research, but you want ChatGPT for reasoning, so on and so forth. And then the other one I really like is Notebook LM because it doesn't use any of your data for training. So I feel much more confident using Notebook LM with client information. And again, never upload anything proprietary, but even if it's general, like summarize these 15 pages or these 15 Excel rows, I feel more confident doing that in Notebook LM than another LLM.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we need to go ahead and wrap up. We're nearing the end of our time here. Thank you so much for joining us, Jonathan. And maybe we'll even have you back at some point because, again, I think you have so much to teach the world. So we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. I haven't done one with multiple hosts before, so it was a fun experience. Yeah.
It was great to have you. Thank you so much again.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.